I'm a very 9 to 5 kind of artist. I think being an artist in the first place is not really fitting in anywhere. So trying to actually live at the same time as other people makes you a little bit more sane. So that's what I try to do. You can always pretend. My name is Rose Eken and I'm a fine artist. This is my studio. So my studio used to be one of the first fetish shops in Vesterbro. It was here for years and years and years. And my friend rented it a couple of years before me, but I think I've been here about 8 years now. And I love it. It's too small, but there's a good vibe in here. There's definitely something, there's a good energy. I think everything I do is about the balance between being precise and non-precise, building up an illusion and making it collapse at the same time. I guess you could say I sort of mine the everyday, or my work is about familiar objects that we are all surrounded by, and I sort of twist or distort them in some form. I take an object and I model it in clay in sort of one-to-one scale, and I make them pretty sketchy, so they're not like perfect renderings of the real thing. But then clay shrinks when it dries, and so it becomes smaller. But still, I also try and then glaze them pretty accurately in a way. When we look at this object, what we do as humans, we kind of compensate for its mistakes. And then we believe in it as the real object. So you pass it and you go, oh, that's a beer bottle. And then you kind of go, no, hang on, that's not a beer bottle. There's something wrong. And then you start looking at it again. And through that process, that's where we suddenly start looking or re-looking at what's familiar to us. And then we start projecting memories or associations or whatever onto the thing. And that's really the story I'm interested in, because then it's other people's story, it's not my story anymore. So that's how I use objects and put them together and try to tell stories, but really through other people's own memories. The first time I made bronzes was a commission for a school in Aarhus. And I wanted them to be able to, stand free or hang on the wall, and you can't really do that with the ceramic because, then there's a child in football and there's no more ceramic piece. So I was trying to come up with how can I do this without it breaking. So basically I cast the pieces in bronze and then I painted them so they looked like my ceramic pieces. I think I've always liked working in very unpretentious materials. And I also kind of like the idea of it's a little bit punk to kind of just go, fuck bronze. You can't see what it is. But still, then bronze can do something that nothing else really does, so it's quite handy. And it is beautiful. So I sort of more and more through that process also got to like it as the material in itself. For Chart in Tivoli, I exhibited a raven and 3 flower pieces. The raven is connected to Gothic literature and sort of the dark side, or witches, and or Odin is the seer of things. So they're sort of psychopomps that can look into the future and tell us what's happening. And I like this idea of our world and the other world. And I think Tivoli Gardens sort of represents that in a way as well. And then the flower pieces is more, I've worked a lot with sort of medicinal and magic plants for a while. I sort of find that interesting. So when we found out where to place them, it made even more sense because they were placed in the rose garden, which is very colorful, and these pieces are very dark. So it very much became the dark counterpart of the real living, colorful rose garden underneath them. It's also a weird place to exhibit because it's not made for that either. But that's also what makes it interesting to try and go and interfere. There's a lot of people in there that is not there to look at art. So how do you make them stop and notice it? I think that's the challenge. like how you really sort of grip in to their little sphere and go. But it's also the fun part of the challenge, because there is so many people going through. But you can give them a bigger kind of surprise in a way, where they actually suddenly realize that art is, wow, oh, I can maybe relate to this. I think that's important about public art, that it's for everybody.